Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you today. Can you tell us, just for the interview, for your name and position?
My name is Carmel Miller. I am the director of what we're calling the Reinventing Project Management Office at Pacific Gas and Electric.
Nice. Have a few questions around managing and management. I'm going to start with hiring. How appropriately and accurately do you target candidates to be a good fit in a particular role? And what challenges have you faced with hiring in the past?
Well, the most recent hiring I've done was for kind of a unique organization that didn't exist before, brand new organization. The roles I was hiring for are very common in my company, program managers and analysts. But what the work that we're going to be doing is different. So in addition to looking for just the skill set of a program manager and an analyst, I was also very specifically looking for someone who had other qualities that are more soft skills. And it was also really important to find someone with like an interest and like excitement for doing something different and new. We don't have standards and processes. So in the hiring process, that was a huge focus in the most recent hiring. In the past 10 months, I've hired 10 people. So in that round of hiring, that was the focus.
How do you consider current organizational culture when considering a candidate? And if cultural change is needed, what do you look for in a candidate to drive that change?
So that was one of the big focuses in the hiring process because the work that we're doing is leading people across many different functional areas in like massive change that most coworkers at our company haven't really experienced. We're a company that's been around for a very, very long time, very set in their ways. So in the hiring process, looking for people who weren't like, we were kind of sharing almost war stories of things that we had been experiencing standing up this team and this project in an attempt to like try to gauge, will people not only be interested in doing like hard work, having challenges in the work, but people who would be kind of excited about leading something different that will certainly not be easy.
What kind of questions did you use to gauge that?
One question we asked was like kind of giving a scenario, like you're leading a project where the owner of a particular process is really like against change, like openly against change. And you really need that owner to engage with the change. Like they own the business, they own the process, but we need to engage them to like change their way of thinking. So asking more of like a hypothetical scenario question, like what would you do in this situation? And then following that by asking also like, have you experienced this before? And if so, what did you do and what was the outcome?
Nice. Do you feel like you're able to get the candidates you're looking for?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, when I started building this team, the first couple of interviews that I didn't ask those kind of questions. I did much more like typical program manager and analyst questions that were more like you could copy paste from another interview guide. But then we kind of altered in, once those people were secure, I realized that they might not have the skill sets that I needed. So we kind of tailored the questions from there that included some of these other elements.
Can you describe a situation where you needed to address an employee's poor performance and some approaches that you've implemented in the past to address or correct an individual performance?
Yeah, so I've been leading people for like about 15 years, and in the various organizations I've worked at, the review processes have been different. When I first started out, we reviewed employees' performance once a month. That was a lot better than what we've done in the past few years, which is just really talk about performance like twice a year. What I have been trying to implement, which I've recently learned from my own leader, so I'm a director, he's a VP, I've never gotten the kind of coaching I get from him. He will call me directly after a call and give me feedback on something I could have done different. He'll see me in a meeting and text me on the side to coach me while I'm leading a meeting. So I've grown tremendously from that. So just in the past year, in being coached by my coach, I have worked on giving feedback much more immediately, like right as or after it's happening. And I could still get better at that because I'm kind of new at it, because it's just not typically what we do. But I find that to be the most effective.
So let's say though you've seen over the course of time a kind of a consistent pattern or concerning behavior, decision-making process, or someone who just is failing to understand their responsibility, and you had to address their performance. What sort of approaches have you used with that?
I honestly have not cracked I haven't found the secret to really transform like a poor performing employee. Generally, I find that you almost performance manage people out of jobs, not intentionally, but I find often that once you start really holding people accountable and they're not getting like the positive feedback that they want, they'll often like move into a different role.
How about in a similar vein, but in a contrasting way, giving feedback to a team, and how does that differ from when it's an individual?
I just had a really interesting experience just this past week I have kind of two teams. I have a program team and I have an analyst team. And I was meeting with the analyst team, and they all like have different kind of assignments and they support each other, but there's only 3 of them and supporting a lot of different things. So they kind of all have to know what each other is doing. The point of the meeting was to ensure that everyone's workload is like not balanced, but reasonable for what they want and what they can do, and to reassign projects or assignments based on skill set and interest and capacity. In that meeting, I attempted to make it my intent was to communicate really very positively the performance that this analyst team has been achieving. My only feedback really was like to speak up if you are working on something that it doesn't align with your skill set, or you're not, or not, or your interests. Like we have so much flexibility, like we can kind of move things around. So the feedback really was just, I need you guys to kind of speak up earlier, because I tend to hear about things once like someone's about to crack, mm-hmm. or it's like too much. I got a text message from one of my employees the next morning that said they were feeling like they had a lot of concern about their own individual performance based on that meeting, and their like morale was really impacted. Mm. And we have a really good relationship, and he didn't want to like go through the weekend like wondering about something. He just wanted to clarify. He took away from that, and I share this because it's so impactful like to hear that, because I really do pay a lot of attention to how I use my words and the things that I was saying. But he took away from that his performance was lacking, and he was was really concerned about that because he had been working really hard. And so I clarified and said, you're doing a great job. We just talked about your performance. Like nothing has changed, and kind of clarified what I meant, which was really like, I don't expect everyone to have the exact same skill set. So I share all that because I was sharing feedback that was meant to be, in my head, I was like trying to be supportive, to say whatever you guys need, like just tell me. But forgetting that people are very, take a lot of responsibility in what they do. And he kind of took it away as I was sort of negatively speaking on the performance. So I say that in like, I'm always working on how to deliver feedback, and my intent was so positive. So in general, I do, my focus is always like, tell me how I can help you. But realizing maybe that's not always the most effective. So I'm always learning the best way to do feedback. And
so maybe that links to that. We have a section on delegating here. So how do you develop trust within a team or organization? And what are some of the strategies you've implemented that you believe foster trust?
I think it's a very tricky balance between like assigning people important tasks and not micromanaging them, but also being close enough to it where you can jump in and help when needed or redirect. Like I have a really big project that I had assigned to someone, and I don't get in the weeds, and I'm like, I trust you to execute this however you see best. And the project was not being delivered on time, but I was kind of made assurances and been told like this other leader, just been given a lot of information. And so how I create trust is by assigning people critical work, but I think there's also a piece of like just staying close enough to it to provide support before the employees ask, because often they won't ask until they're like it's too late to like meet the initial intent of a project.
So with that, we have a little bit, so we wanted to talk about some factors that you consider when delegating a task. There's some big broad ones about task complexity, project timeline. What are some additional factors that you highlight when deciding who to give what task?
The thing that I think about the most now is probably task complexity and the ability to lead many different kinds of relationships. Like in the work that we do, we work with what we call like boots on the ground, like frontline employees that are out in the field, linemen and other like technical crafts. And then we also, in the same day, you might be speaking to an executive leader about our project. So with tasks that kind of really touch both ends and across like so many different kinds of people, complexity of tasks, we really need to assign to like the most skilled and competent coworkers. Like even if they don't know how to do everything, somebody who's confident in both those situations, which just not everybody is. They can get there, and that's where it's tricky, right? You want people to learn and grow, so you kind of have to put them in those situations. But at times you need to just assign to somebody who's already ready.
How do you handle, this is a little bit on management strategies, how do you handle conflicts or disagreements within your team? And do you have any tried and true strategies that you bring out whenever something occurs? Or is it each individual's time is a new time?
I often ask employees to attempt to work through it on their own first, if they can. Like I just had someone recently say they didn't want to like have this particular person back them up on a project because they just rubbed each other the wrong way. Like, okay, well, we're a small team of 10. Like we can't just avoid each other forever. Like I would like you guys to work together, see if you can work through it. And sometimes the opposite is true. Like let's like take you guys apart from each other for a little bit so that we can like maybe sort through some things. So tried and true strategies. I think just having people together, like spending time together and just doing like working together physically, which we've gotten away from obviously. But we kind of have been spending a lot of physical time together, and that seems to be the best.
Last question I have here is related to the professional growth of your team. How do you support that, and what are ways that you address that with your team members?
Professional growth is really, really big priority for me. I check in often with the people that report to me and ask, like, are you doing work that you're interested in? Are you excited about your work? Are you learning? And if they're not excited and they're not learning, or they're not interested in what they're doing, I happen to have the pretty unique experience to have a lot of so many different projects going on that I can kind of move people around, and we sort of have the option to be flexible. That's not always the case, but I do ask those questions. And then in the case when you don't have that much flexibility, it's like, okay, what do you want to do next, and how can we help you get there? Do you want to lead people? Do you want to get a kind of lateral job into a different area of interest? So just asking those questions, and then really committing to helping coworkers get there. Sharing my own personal experience helps a lot too. A lot of times people just don't know. I don't know what to do next, or not sure what path to take. So sharing my own experiences can sometimes help.
Sure. Sometimes people just need to have a little bit of a spark lit, or just to know that they can change, and to give them that option is big. They don't give it to themselves. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you being willing to be interviewed by me.
Thank you.